It Happened on the Job, the podcast for relatable conversations with contractors. Sponsored by Goodman Insurance.
Welcome to It Happened on the Job. We are your podcast for relevant and relatable conversations with contractors. Hopefully a little bit entertaining. A little bit of entertainment for you as well. My name is Mike. That's Brian.
Hello.
We are episode 50 today.
50.
Yeah, coming at you. 5-0 already.
Jeez.
Halfway to 100.
Yeah, we sure. Yes, it is. Good math.
Good math.
And today we have Patrick Heffler, president and owner of Heffler Contracting Group. How you doing, Patrick?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing today?
Doing wonderful.
Good, man. Thanks for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, we really appreciate that.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So give us some background on you and how you got started in the construction industry and your company as well.
Well, I actually been in construction all my life. My dad was a contractor. They had their own small business. So I grew up in it, quite honestly. I went to high school working summers. I'm sure a lot of your listeners can relate to that.
Oh, yeah.
Working summers and weekends and pretty much was the cheapest labor my dad had. So
we tend to hear that quite a bit. If you grow up in it, I feel like there's may or may not have been some child labor laws that were extorted.
Yeah, I think we've had one that said something and associates. And he goes, I was the associate.
Okay. Yeah, but he was a great guy, great man. My father, he taught me a lot of things. But one of the main things was he taught me great work ethic and working weekends and during high school, grade school, whatever it may be. I was earning my keep as a family member. And my dad was he is old school, definitely old school, and he lived during the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. And he was younger. He was 11 then. And he learned the value of work and work ethic. And I think I got that from him. And one of the biggest aspects is he taught me from the ground up. He would pick me up, take me to work in the mornings. I'd crack of dawn every single Saturday, and I'd be working in the ditches, digging trenches, digging holes, whatever it may be. Started there, and he actually graduated me up to he gave me a wheelbarrow. He allowed me to use a wheelbarrow. And then from there, it came into actually a piece of equipment. He taught me how to operate equipment. So his background and my background is mainly civil type of construction. We've sort of expanded Heffler Company from there. But my dad, throughout that time frame, he was teaching me the what it took to be a good contractor and the hard work it takes. So one of the things is through grade school, I worked on weekends, and in high school, I worked on the weekends and all summers. And in fact, in college, I supported myself going to college, helping my parents out on their business. And it went from labor to pretty much estimating and learning, understanding the aspects of a construction company. Unfortunately, my brother passed away. I have two other siblings. My brother passed away in 1990. My parents went through a lot on that, obviously. Yeah. And that's when I asked my dad, I'd like to buy your license or be part of Heffler Company. At that point, the company had not really done much in the last couple of years because they were struggling with my brother. And it took a lot out of my parents. And he gave me that. He goes, yeah, you can buy my license. You can do that. And at that point was when I sort of reinvented Heffler Contracting Group. And that was in 1991. And we were doing all municipality work, all city government, local government work, school districts, things like that.
Prior to 91 or from 91 on?
Prior to 91, we were doing that as well.
I see.
But I really emphasized in 1991 only that. And at that point, we were more of a general contractor as opposed to a sub and a general contractor prior to 1991. So at that point, I went to St. Augustine High School in San Diego. I had kids, and I went to University of San Diego. My degree was economics, completely different from construction. I married my high school sweetheart who went to San Diego State, and I have 4 kids. And I have twins that are just finishing up college, and one that's just got a scholarship to play football at Cal Poly. And then my youngest one's entering in high school. So I had a lot to do at that time. Obviously I got married in 1985, and I had a lot that I wanted to get accomplished. 1995. I shouldn't tell you that. I had a lot I wanted to get accomplished at that time, and so my career was very important, and I was very, very hardworking and very aggressive on it. So at that time, I decided to really go hard, straight across doing municipality work, and I did really well. Did really well in it. Respectfully, we stayed in the general contracting position. We didn't subcontract our internal trades, and we got our bonding up and was able to bid on all these projects as a prime contractor with all these different cities. And that went really well for quite some time until quite honestly, the economy hit.
Yep.
It tanked in 2007, 8, 9. And at that point, I was doing really well, hard bidding against a lot of contractors in an open bid process. And the competition was about 4 to 5 contractors every single bid. And at the height of the recession, I was bidding against 28 contractors.
Jeez.
Wow.
Okay.
It was horrendous, and I wasn't accustomed to that. And one of the things about one of the things about municipal contracting is that a lot of your accolades or a lot of your reputation and all the good things you do for the client, it really just doesn't. It gets seen, but it doesn't help you get more work.
Right.
Yeah, because there's so much structure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all hard bid, and so we had a reputation of doing more than what was expected on a contract. We got along really well with our clients, City of San Diego, County, Caltrans, all these different places, school districts. We got along really well with them, and we're the type of contractor that always sought the opportunity to partner with our clients and not really have that adversarial type of relationship. All projects have issues. All construction, it's construction.
Yeah.
It's just how you attack it and how you promote yourself on being that type of contractor that's going to build bridges instead of building walls in front of these clients. So with the municipality going sort of in the tubes because of lack of funds and lack of budgets and all the private sector coming into municipality work, I had a really tough time. There was 3 years I went not getting one project. Not one.
Wow.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah.
And so I had to make a choice. And I always used to think of about my dad because he was just a strong, really, really tough guy. And he would say, the biggest thing you can do as a father is teach your kids how to deal with problems and how to get out of problems and how to have integrity getting out of these problems. And what I had to do is I had to figure out, okay, where am I going to go? I have 4 kids two are about to go into college. One's going into high school, and they're private schools and they're expensive. How am I going to do this? And so I went after a program called the 8A program, and that's in federal construction, federal contracting. It took me 18 months to get the certification, but I had the time because there was no really work out there that was very, very worthwhile going after.
Yeah.
So during that process of getting my application submitted, I'm pretty analytical. So I look at, okay, how can I take this to the limit? Because the 8A program in federal construction through SBA is a business development program. I guess its entire goal is to bring a contract or a company from small to a job producing contractor.
Right.
And so at the time when I first submitted, I had one employee, and that was me. And I was always arguing with myself, but no. Okay. But getting back to that is going into the program. I said, well, it's a 9-year program, and that 9 years you can't waste any time because that takes away eligibility. So I went and during my process of application, I went and interviewed about 18 different contractors that were in the SBA program, 8A program. Some that were very successful, some that sort of died on the limb when their program ended. What I found was most of those contractors that were successful, that are still here today doing federal construction, were not trying to go after the low-hanging fruit, meaning the contracts that are sort of provided to these programmees that are sort of a benefit of being an 8A contractor. And I went after the long-term contracts. And the first year was very difficult. I had very little revenue, very little things going on, but I did hit the ground running. Based upon my past experience in construction, I understood bonding. I understood finance. I understood management. I understood how to run a company. But what I didn't have is contracts. I didn't have any revenue. So I had to figure that one out. It took me about a year to get up and going, but I was hitting pretty well during that time. I was getting little contracts here and there. But prior to that first year, interviewing these contractors, they were saying, I would ask them the question, these 8A contractors, I would ask them the question, if you had your 8A today, or you're about to get your 8A today, what would you do? What would you have done differently knowing what you know today? And all of them told me, you have to go after these multiple year contracts. Because what happens is a lot of contractors that are 8A will go after the ones that are just available for them. And then once that contract's over, they move on to the next one, move on to the next one. You can't do that as a contractor in federal work. Yeah. You have to have no gaps in your backlog of work. You have to be consistently working, because you never know what the federal government, they delay procurements or they delay contracts based on funding.
Yeah.
And their fiscal year end is September 30th as opposed to December 31st, as pretty much everybody in the construction industry. So with the long-term contracts, that gives you more life and longevity within the program. And it also gives your employees a stable base of work for many years. So after the first year, I started targeting these contracts. And these contracts are really for the ones that are qualified to do the work, that has past performance on federal contracts. I didn't have a lot of that. But by submitting my proposal, I was able to get debriefed by the contracting specialist, or let's say the source selection group of the federal contracting. I was able to get feedback. What was I missing from my proposal? What was I missing from my qualifications? And that was feedback that was worth a lot.
Yeah, invaluable.
Yeah,
invaluable. So based on that feedback, I started getting really a lot better at submitting my proposals. And once I got my first, let's say, job, it's called a job order contract. Once I got my first job order contract, I was able to hire personnel. My first major hire was a senior project manager that had a lot of experience in the Northern California desert areas. So the desert areas pertain to a lot of the facilities up there is 29 Palms, Barstow Base, Fort Irwin, Fort Edwards Air Force Base, NASA. He was well entrenched in those areas. He knew the location. So I brought him aboard as a senior project manager. We did really well in a lot of job contracts and some sole source contracts at Edwards. I was able to bring in an operations manager, and to realize I'm bringing these people in that are probably smarter than myself, quite honestly. I'll be straight with you. My job is to lead the company.
Yeah, know what you're good at and hire those other people that are good at those other things. Yeah.
Let the horses run, man.
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at it. And good men, good people, good everybody. And so I brought in an operations manager. His name is Jesse. And he and I built the infrastructure on how we're going to manage the volume of work we're going to be going after in the future years. So the infrastructure I talk about is all the protocols, all the documentation, all the infrastructure when it comes to technology. And when you're working on several different bases, you got to really consider all the logistics associated with that. I mean, it's a lot different working at Edwards Air Force Base than it is working at San Clemente Island. So you got to really think about that. But it's a necessity to understand that, because brings in the revenue, brings in the work. And if you limit yourself to one base or one location within the federal sector, what ends up happening is that base might have a lot of funding that goes to it. So let's say in 2015, let's say, but then they won't get any funding in 2016. So it's very important to have a broad footprint because it reduces your risk.
Right.
And that's one of the things that's also with the 8A program is the government requires you to do non-8A work. So you're not dependent upon 8A work.
Right.
Because what they're saying is after the 8A program is over on your 9th year, a lot of companies fail because they're so dependent upon that low-hanging fruit. So we swayed away from it. We do get sole source contracts. We do get contracts to us regularly that are unsolicited, that are negotiated, but we don't survive off of that. In addition to that, after I hired Jesse, we built the infrastructure that we're using today, and we standardized all our operations when it came to that. And that's extremely important with the federal government because a lot of the federal government items, let's say protocols, are very standard in itself. Sort of archaic, but also standard. So we came up with a system that really works really well. But in order to keep a great senior PM and a great operations manager going, I need to have the projects coming in. And I knew I needed to personally focus on business development and getting the Heffler's brand out there. Because Edwards might know Heffler, but Fort Irwin might not know anything about them. Right. So it's very important to get in front of these contracting officers or specialists and do capability presentations with them and let them know who you are. It might not happen for 6 months that you get a call back, but it gives you an opportunity to get in front of them. And a lot of times the federal government realizes that if you're willing to do that, they'll check you out, see what your past performance is. They'll talk to other contracting officers or specialists. Hey, how did Heffler do? And they'll hopefully give them a good answer. So, but with Mike being hired and Jesse being hired, I needed somebody to help me with building the programs, meaning all the MAC contracts, all the job contracts, building our portfolio and our recurring revenue. And I brought in a gentleman named Castor, and he is a 40-year veteran in construction. He brings us the vertical experience. I'm more of the horizontal, meaning civil side. He brings all the vertical experience and all the design build experience that we needed. And he understood the programs. So what his job is he runs our estimating team and all the programs. He gets us into these programs, these long-term contract vehicles. And then he also bids on all the task orders that come from those contract vehicles. And he does a great job, incredible job. With that said, we had a sort of a good formula that is going on right now and in the last few years, because everything that we've said we were going to do 3 or 4 years ago, we're currently doing now. And it's been great in that regard. So I told you, I started out with 1 employee, not the best, but now we have 96.
96.
Wow.
96 employees.
So how much work are you guys self-performing versus subbing out?
About almost 60% we self-perform.
Wow. That's pretty unique. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe speak to that a little bit. What was the reason for moving to so much self-performance?
That's a great question. A really good question, because a lot of contractors tend to say, sometimes it's a hassle and sometimes it's difficult to self-perform so much work. And it does have its challenges.
Especially as the prime, right? Obviously the subs, will come in and self-perform all their work, but as a prime on federal work, that's a lot to manage.
It's a lot to manage. But this is one of the things that you sort of got to balance out. Sometimes on a lot of these projects, it's very difficult for the subcontractors to get vetted and get on base.
Right.
And a lot of their employees, you'll find that they have maybe some issues.
Can't clear the background checks.
Yeah.
They do the background checks and they don't get vetted.
Yeah.
And so what we found is that we have a lot of good subcontractors that we go through the vetting process and pre-qualify them. And a lot of times we'll have a lot of areas where they're more interested in working as opposed to in San Diego or in Southern California. So what will happen is we'll get a contract, and we've had several subcontractors that they just can't get on base. We had a contract recently that the owner couldn't even get on base.
Jeez.
And so it's a sort of a barrier of entry into the market for a lot of subcontractors.
For sure.
It's very difficult. And I mean, it's understand everybody's human, but it's just difficult.
Well,
so
it just makes it hard to operate when you don't have, when those unknowns are there, when those variables are there.
It's almost like, I mean, it's not your problem, but it becomes your problem.
Right.
And,
very quickly.
Yeah. So we have to maneuver around that. So what we did is a lot of our self-performance of work is in Southern California. We sub out a little bit more outside of Southern California. In the desert areas, we'll subcontract to a lot of our partners out there that we work with, Vandenberg Air Force Base, Hill Air Force Base in Utah. So we'll do a lot of subbing out in those locations, and that's tending to work out well. But another reason is on a lot of these job contracts that it's very difficult because we're at several different bases at one time. We're able to move our crews base to base to base and get these things done. And a lot of the job contracts are sort of like glorified maintenance contracts.
Right.
Basically, you're replacing things, doing TIs, quick, fast, easy. And they're designed.
So you got to have guys available, and you don't have to worry about that vetting or process of the background checks or anything.
Yeah. And so we have all our 96 vetted. So it's easy for us to go in there and knock them out. Sometimes it works. Smart. It doesn't work, quite honestly. Sometimes it's very difficult, and we're trying to figure out the schedule and try to get logistics. Does it make sense to send our crew up north, or is it better for us to have them here? So we just sort of balance it. That's quite honest. It's tough.
Did your 8A run its course, or did you outgrow it? Because from what I understand, we've had a couple guys on before that have talked about it. From what I understand, you have to stay under a certain revenue threshold over a couple year period or whatever.
We're getting close to that revenue threshold. We have 1 year left on the program.
Okay.
Our program ends in September of 2021.
Yeah.
But like I said, we've sort of used the advice that I heard from the other 8As that we've used that I interviewed, and we took it to heart. We have a lot of contract vehicles. I think we have 12 MAC contracts, and we have like 8 job contracts.
Wow.
And those will basically extend your 8A in a sense, because we receive those contracts as an 8A.
Right.
Or a hub zone.
You can continue to work on them after that runs its course.
Yeah, you don't have to, just because your 8A ends, but if you got your contract vehicle prior to it ending, it's basically extending your 8A process or your 8A program.
So where do you see yourselves going after that expires?
We're going to stay in the programs. We're going to stay doing what we're doing in contract vehicles. The 8A really helped us in it. Basically, it's not a free ticket. I'm going to tell you right now, the 8A program is not a free ticket.
Yeah, just kind of get your foot in the door for you.
It's basically, instead of a cold call, it's a warm call. That's it.
Yeah.
You got to put the work in. You can't go to the contractor. Hey, I don't have a lot of. You can't contract an officer. I don't have a lot of experience, but I have an 8A. You can't show them that card.
Right.
That's not the way. You got to perform. You got to prove yourself as a contractor, and let the project that you complete be your resume for future contracts. And then say, oh, by the way, you can use my 8A to facilitate the procurement on this contract. Yeah. So it's just a vehicle. Yeah. A lot of people throw that card out and throw this certification out, throw it in front of people. But in my opinion, it speeds the process up, but it doesn't make you a good contractor.
Right.
A good contractor has to do with your integrity and doing what you say you're going to do with the client. A good contractor doesn't change order the client every 5 seconds.
Yep.
In my opinion, you promise them one thing, but you outperform in every aspect. Under promise, over deliver. And that goes for everything. Your administration of the contract, your safety on the contract, your schedule on the contract. And if the government doesn't have any change orders, or they call them mods in federal contracting, they don't have any. They love you. Yeah. And that's what we do. We don't go searching for opportunities to fill our pockets. We go searching for opportunities to go into other contracts. That's the way we look at it.
So what was that tipping point? You mentioned prior that they like to see some form, at least hopefully some experience. You had submitted several proposals, and the good thing was you got to meet with the contractor specialist and kind of learn some of the things. What was that the vehicle that brought you eventually? You knew how to fine tune that bid, or what was it that actually brought you from one employee to say 5, 6, 7, 10 employees, eventually to obviously 96?
I would say it's that contract, that first jock contract, because that first jock contract was based upon a capability presentation that I did in Camp Pendleton. And I went in there by myself without a video or anything. I just went in there by myself and just talked to them straight up. And they gave me the opportunity. I do have a lot of background in construction. I think they probably sensed, and they understood that I had bonding capabilities. And I understood, I spoke the language.
Right.
And I just said, just give me the opportunity. Just give me one opportunity. I will not prove you wrong. And from that point, everything sort of took off because they realized that I was serious. They realized I understood construction, and they had a need at that time. So that's what it was. So based upon that jock contract, I think it was a $4 million jock. And I believe we roughly did about 30 task orders off of that jock, something like that.
Wow.
And that 30 task orders gave me a lot of past performance to leverage into other programs.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I had contracts prior to the 8A program, prior to federal, that was on the not private side, but in the municipality side, that I was able to use as qualifications as well.
Yeah, for sure.
That helped as well.
Speak to the hiring a little bit. What are you looking for? I mean, there's obviously a lot more stringent, guidelines, if you will, that I understand that you guys have because of what you do. But is there something in particular that you're looking for when you're hiring somebody, or going through that process, or mainly where are you finding people that fit what you guys are doing?
Unfortunately, in construction, in my opinion, a lot of really qualified people tend to be always on the ups and downs of whatever company they're working for. Meaning, if there's a contract available, they're working.
Right.
If not, they get dismissed, unfortunately.
Yep.
Our goal at Heffler Contracting is to have this company be the last one you work for every single time. That's what our goal is. And we say it right to them. I mean, it's up to them, but but if you perform the way you've demonstrated you're going to perform at your interview, and we've provided you all the tools to perform, you'll fit in really well here. We don't have a lot of turnover here at all, quite honestly. And we pay very well. We pay people very well. And because I believe this company is not because of me, this company is because everybody that's contributed to it.
Right.
Everybody's doing their job. Everybody's making it better in every aspect. For instance, Jesse, I'll give you, because the guy's a workaholic, but he really enjoys what we're our culture here. He really enjoys what we're trying to accomplish here. Carl, who's an older guy, he works harder than me ever. I mean, the guy called me at 5 o'clock, 12 at night and talking to me about things. He just really has that passion for the business. And I think it has to do with, I don't tie people's hands. I don't put them in handcuffs. I tell them where the company's going. I tell them what we're expecting, what we're going to do for them, and what we're going to provide them to do to get their career accomplished. And I let them go. I just let them work. I'm not on their shoulder, over their shoulder at all.
Yeah.
And I think that freedom and that sort of entrepreneurial mentality with them has resonated throughout the company in a lot of ways.
So you said something that I like there when you said that, that you tell people that you bring in that you want this to be the last job that they ever have. I would have to imagine that if I'm on the other side of the table when you tell me that, something that I would want to see is, some sort of path towards upward movement. So, or upward progression and promotion. How do you guys kind of demonstrate that to them, or how do you illustrate that to them so that they see that vision and can believe those things when they're in that hiring process?
I'll give you a good example of that. we just hired 2 project engineers straight out of college. One from San Diego State, the other one from UC San Diego. Very little to minuscule amount of construction experience, but one of them is a civil engineer, and the other one is structural engineer.
Before you go too much further, do you and your wife have bets on which one's going to make it further based on the schools that you guys each went to?
Well, he went to USD.
Oh,
and
okay.
you said UC. Yeah.
The problem is my wife's a lot smarter than me and better looking.
Amen.
I'm always going to be below her in every aspect. Doesn't really matter.
Good answer. I'm sure she's listening too.
Yeah, exactly. She will be. But as far as the PEs are concerned, so our project managers we really give our project managers a lot of binding authority in the company. We have them build their teams. We have them build their project engineers. So it went through a 10 interview process, 10 different individuals interviewing on the project engineer side. And the engineers that we picked up that accepted our offer, we told them, quite frankly, this is the route we're going to be taking with you. We're bringing you in at the lowest level as a P. I say lowest, meaning they both wanted to get into the project management level. We said, we're going to bring you at the PE level, and we're going to teach you everything how we do things here. And in addition to that, you're going to be working right with all the project managers, including the senior PMs. You're going to go to the project pre-construction meetings. You're going to be sitting in and turnover meetings from the estimating department to the construction. You're going to be sitting with the general superintendents. You're going to hear it all. Our goal is to advance those guys in 3 years to either assistant PM or a PM level. The protocols that we have in place with Heffler Contracting and the procedures, it's really, I hate to say it, simple, stupid. If you follow it, it's very easy. It's the ones that just detract from the path are the ones that have struggle with it sometimes, because you have to be structured when it comes to it. And we found that these two PEs, they want that structure. They understand that structure. They're from that kind of structure. A structural engineer and a civil engineer. I mean, they're very structured mindset. And they've been here, I think, 3 months now. I believe it's been 3 months. And they're completely excelling in what they're doing. And they understand the culture. And they're young. They're young guys. They're young gentlemen, literally right out of college. And they see where they're going. They actually have a path. And our PMs are taking them under their wing. And it's not just teaching them how to do submittals or teaching them how to do schedules or teaching them, it's how to deal with people. And a lot of that's lost sort of in today's day. A lot of phone calls aren't made. It's all texting and it's all this.
Yeah.
But a lot of times with the federal government, you can't text them. You got to call them. You got to talk to them.
They're
and so yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we're instilling that, and a lot of our PMs are bringing them under their wing. And I tell them, you guys are the future. You guys are the future of the company, and you have to learn from what we're doing now. Take the good that we're doing and adapt to making it better. And that's what's doing it. So they actually see the path and they understand it. A lot of people, like for instance, Carl runs. We have an estimating team of 12. There's 12 estimators in our company, and Carl runs all those estimators. They all have their strengths. One of them is a electrical estimator, another one's mechanical estimator, one's structural, and a few others are more specialty or general construction. And he runs all those guys. And some of them are a lot stronger estimators than others because they don't have as much knowledge as some of the general type of estimators. But Carl gets them involved with all the design build meetings with our consultants. Even if they're not involved, he teaches them how to speak to the design consultants. He teaches them what goes on behind the scenes on the design when it's a design build contract. Also in negotiations with the government, sometimes contracts are negotiated with the government. Our senior PMs do all the negotiating with our contracts, but they'll bring in the PM and they'll be in the PE to listen and understand what transpires, because a lot does happen with those negotiations. Sometimes they're heated, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And not in a negative way. It's just, it's sometimes you have to teach.
Well, there's a lot of passion in those rooms when there's design aspects and personal design aspects and things that you have ownership for, and different, and all those guys have ownership of what they're bringing to the table, and there's a lot of passion that's involved there, I would imagine.
Exactly. So we're all seeing the path. We're all seeing the path of where we're trying to go. Advancement in construction is difficult because a lot of people want to stay sort of stay in their specialty. Like a superintendent really doesn't want to be a quality control manager, or let's say an estimator sometimes doesn't want to be a PM, or a PM doesn't want to be an estimator. So you gotta just be able to adapt to it, I guess you would say. So.
Sounds like you guys do a lot of, I don't want to say cross training, but like kind of transparency among job duties, so that kind of everybody knows what's going on with everybody and has an understanding of what everybody else does. And
and you have to because, in my opinion, you have to, because if somebody gets sick, especially now COVID, what's happening with COVID, somebody gets sick, who's going to take over their duties? And if the process is not standardized, how do they pick up where the guy left off? How do they not understand the documentation, where the file, how the file structure is set up? What was the last discussion with the government, and where are we at? And we're really, really a firm believer, if you're cross-trained in every aspect, whether it's accounting, whether it's a field guy, let's say electrician, if he knows some mechanical on the rough side, or if he knows how to hang drywall, it helps him have more work in the future. If you stick to the strictures of only one duty, that puts limitations on yourself.
Yeah. Well, not only for different types of work, but like you said, if that electrical guy understands the drywall and how that works, then he's got a better understanding of, what he needs to do to make sure that the drywall guy's job is easier, as when coming in after him, and just all those different things. You kind of understanding all those different aspects. I find it very fascinating, and maybe I just haven't heard it yet, but is there any military history at all in your family?
My dad was in the Navy.
So that's where, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, my dad.
You didn't mention that you had been in there, but it sounds like, and this obviously makes sense now learning from your dad, but it sounds like, I just find it fascinating that, with that little bit of experience, through osmosis, through your dad and what he's taught you, your company is set up in a very militaristic way, right? I mean, from the way you've kind of gone about things and the systems you set up and all the, the standard operating procedures that you talk about, the training and everything else, it's very disciplined and militaristic, which obviously it makes sense now.
Organized.
Organized.
Helps you stay
efficient. That's funny you say that, because Jesse, the gentleman I've been talking about, he's an ex-Marine.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't doubt that. Yeah, I would almost imagine that those are the people you're attracting, and I would imagine that you get quite a few of those.
Yeah. I guess you can never say they're an ex-Marine; they're a Marine.
Yeah, you're a Marine for life.
Yeah, no, for life. Yeah. Just out of curiosity, do you go to any of the? And I'm probably going to butcher exactly what they're called, but we talked to a guy once who. He actually goes to like job fairs from guys coming out of the military.
Oh, Richard.
Yeah. He actually goes, and that's right. And he was ex-military as well. Yeah. He doesn't do any government or federal government work or military work, but that's where he goes to find his employees. Is that a avenue or a tool you guys have used?
Yes, we do. And we have actually quite a few ex-military guys, or not ex-military guys.
Service guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Service guys. We have two PMs were former Army vets, several Navy guys, several Marines. We do try to attract as many service gentlemen as possible.
Well, I feel like they would understand and appreciate the style that you guys have and fit right in and kind of, lack of a better term, hit the ground running with boots on and boots going, like with how you guys operate. So.
Yeah, the structure of let's say the military structure and the hierarchy of command, let's say.
Yeah.
That's extremely that's how we run things here.
Yeah.
It's just the communication and having multiple directives from different people, you tend to get chaotic. Right. So we try to focus on having one source of information come from the one person. So the chain of command really comes in effect with Heffler.
Yeah.
In the perspective of keeping it organized.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, 100%. It sounds like you guys are extremely organized, and it's obviously attributed to your success where you're at now.
Yeah.
What are some of, like, where you guys are at now? Obviously, you guys have, it sounds like you got everything pretty streamlined, but what are some of the hurdles or objectives that you guys face on a daily basis that you guys have to tackle as a team?
That's a great question. One of the things is, as we get into these programs and as we are issued task orders off these programs or get awarded, it's having enough personnel to manage the programs. And we do attract a lot of superintendents, let's say on-site personnel, superintendent, quality control manager, safety officers. So we're always looking for those type of individuals that want to be with us because we can keep them busy all the time. So I would say the personnel is a tough thing, especially in certain type markets, labor markets. And the fact that we're in different locations, different, let's say, footprints, different cities or whatever, tends to be a little challenging, I would say. As far as the process of performing the contract, that's never been an issue for us. As far as the process of keeping people working all the time, that's never been an issue.
That's awesome.
But having enough people is probably the biggest challenge.
Well, not only even enough people, but like you said, being in multiple locations, I have to imagine it can be kind of a logistical nightmare, I guess, if you will. If you need 3 people over here and you need 6 people over here and you need 2 people down here, like just being in all places at once to kind of go through that process of vetting people and getting them on board.
It's tough, and that's why we really emphasize our structure and sticking to our standardization. Because imagine having all these different locations, everybody doing it a different way. For sure. And by far, we're no way perfect in any aspect. We're always trying to improve. But our goal is to be as structured as possible and be as standardized as possible.
So that's standardization, I'm assuming, because going from one employee, you, to 96 employees was that part of the plan initially when you first met with Jesse and some of these other guys? Was that to create an infrastructure in place for the company so that way when you scale up to be able to, okay.
That was all the whole intent. So when I first met Jesse, I think we were doing about a 1.2 million or something like that. Good amount of work, but not a tremendous amount of contracts. And I said, Jesse, this is where I want to go. How are we going to get there? These are my thoughts. This is what I want to do. This is what's important for me as a company. And this is what I understand in the business, and especially in federal work. We can't survive only doing work in one location. The work will run out, or possibly the funding will run out.
Yeah.
We have to be mobile. We have to
have that personnel issue again and again and again. Yeah.
And the thing is I think a lot of the obstacles is for a lot of companies is the continuance of work. You can have great employees, but then the next month they're not busy because they've just finished a project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you end up losing them and have to go through that process again.
If you can continue keeping them busy, they'll continue helping bringing in revenue. But as far as the organization and everything, that was strategically difficult, the logistics of it, and having the ability to do that. So I asked him, I said, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to do it. It's not going to be perfect today, but my goal is to be able to run all these programs simultaneously and have the ability to manage them in all these different logistics. And from day one, we are always anticipating where we're going to be today or maybe 10 years from now. So we're always thinking that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, you said a while back that, where you're at today was meeting those goals that you set 3 to 5 years ago. What are the next 3 to 5 years look like for you guys from a goal situation or from a scope of work?
Well, one of the things is I think we can always improve in every aspect of our business. I want to continue with the locations that we're in right now on all the bases that we have, and I want to expand it a little bit more into Arizona as well. The difference in sales or revenue, I want to continue increasing about 5 to 10% per year starting actually in 2019. And I think we can do that. We have a lot of the right pieces in place. But it's going to be challenging to do that because we're in a hub zone. We reside in a hub zone. Our company does, but we're sort of running out of space with all the personnel that we have here. So there's some logistic things that we got to deal with and to continue doing what we're doing. But I look at our revenue can continue to increase 5 to 10% for the next 5 years.
Yeah, manageable amount.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Interesting.
What is it? Just before we let you go, I have one more question meant to ask you earlier. How did you guys manage through the COVID crisis from an employee morale standpoint and a workflow standpoint?
Wow, it's been a challenge, but I think the greatest thing is are the people here at Heffler. Everybody that's a part of Heffler Company, they came through for us. Absolutely, they were completely responsible. They grabbed all their equipment, all their technology, brought it home, set up offices in their room, in their office, in their house, and they just worked just as hard. I'm lucky. I got lucky. I don't know if I got lucky. It's just they felt like they just came through. They just came through for us. It's been tough managing it because we just found out one of our projects in Seal Beach, a complete room, which is like a computer room, got exposed to COVID. Oh. And now we have to exit that project until it gets taken care of. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's happening every day. Every single day there's something coming up. But we're pretty open and we're pretty, all our personnel have laptops as opposed to standalones. That's something that Jesse decided to do 4 years ago, not even knowing about COVID.
Yeah. And paid off for you now, huh?
It paid off because we didn't have to. And they're all set up at home. They have monitors at home and internet access. Everything's set up. So they're able to go either way. We still like them around us because we think that the cooperative environment that we have at Heffler, that a mechanical guy can talk to an electrical guy can talk to a structural engineer, and a civil engineer can talk to himself or whatever it may be. But we like that kind of structure because it helps, and it helps being able to usually you'd have to make a phone call and talk to a subcontractor. Hey, what do you think about this, the power requirements for this unit or whatever? You're able to talk directly to a 30-year veteran that's in electrical or a guy that's mechanical. I mean, we do have our ups and downs, quite honestly. A lot of times the communication construction, sometimes guys in construction don't communicate very well. They expect you to know things. Right. We deal with that on a regular basis. And, but we do our best to try to provide an environment that everybody's open to talk, and the door is always open to everybody. But during the COVID crisis, nobody knew how to handle it.
Yeah. No handbook or standard operating procedure on that one, huh?
Yeah, not at all.
And I think we've sort of adapted pretty well because of the great people we have here.
Yeah.
I think that's one of in my opinion, it sounds like it's a payoff or a reward for doing such a good job on the front end, hiring and finding the right people and training and getting them all to believe your mission and your goals. And the
thing is, sometimes we don't meet the expectations at the interview when we hire people. Maybe some people have different expectations on what they'll be doing or how we process things or how structured we are, and they didn't anticipate, and sometimes it doesn't work out. But as a company, the culture here is to always be treated like a family member. That's the culture here. Everybody looks to each other to help each other. When there's somebody in need, we dig in and help them, and we roll up our sleeves and figure out a way to do it. And that's sort of the same mentality you have to have with the government, because a lot of the representatives that we're working with at the government, they don't know a lot about the work, and they have to trust you. Right. And they trust you that you're going to take care of the government, you're going to take care of the taxpayers, and you're going to take care of their mission that they're required to use your services for. And I think it has to do a lot about that, and how it has a lot to do with the people that are here. I'm lucky. Yeah. Lucky I was able to do that.
For sure.
Well, very cool, man. Well, we'll let you run. I know we're running up on time. We'll before we go, we want to let you
Give a shout out.
Give your shout outs and your plugs and
let us know
your
where to find
websites or phone numbers or social media, however the people can find you.
Well, I was bragging about my kids, okay? So, but I'm Patrick Heffler, Heffler Contracting Group. My website is www.heffcongrp.com. But my daughter, who's a sportscaster or trying to be one.
Really?
You got to check her out. Bama Network. She goes to the University of Alabama.
Oh, Roll Tide, huh?
Yeah, Roll Tide. So check her out when you get a chance and give her a shout out. And,
for sure.
She's trying to do what you guys are doing.
She'll do it way better than us. I promise you that.
A little better looking than you guys, but it's okay.
Very cool. Well, Patrick, thanks again. We appreciate it. Stay safe out there, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick.
Have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.